Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. It's the heart of summer, but the news cycle is not slowing down. President Trump holding a cabinet meeting at this very moment. Plus, we've got big developments on the Democrats politicizing the Texas floods, including some shocking sound from, of course, Rachel Maddow. But her colleagues over at CNN are just as bad as she is on MS. I mean, just as bad. Remember when CNN tried to take a turn to the more moderate and they were going to try to win back some of their conservative or, middle of the road viewers? That's over. This Caitlin Collins, this Abby Phillip, they're Don Lemon. They're just as left. It's shocking how far left they've gone. Remember when that Caitlin Collins used to be like, I'm from a southern state, and I used to work for Tucker at the Daily Caller, so you can trust me. She Alabama. She's as far left as Don Lemon now. You watch her show, that's who she is. Meantime, New York City Democratic mayor candidate Zohran Mamdani did not have the most patriotic statement about the 4th of July. We did. We're going to give you some highlights from our big party. But wait till you hear how Vice President J.D. Vance responded to Mamdani, which is an interesting thing because clearly, the Republican mainstream is enjoying elevating him. They see him as a Jasmine Crockett. They don't feel afraid of Zohran Mamdani. They love him. They want him to be the face of the Democratic Party. And we should ask our panel today, 60-day money-back guarantee. Visit simplysafe.com/Megyn. Simply is spelled S-I-M-P-L-I, safe.com/Megyn to claim 50% off a new system with a professional monitoring plan and get your first month free. Simplysafe.com/Megyn. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Guys, welcome back. Great to see you.
Great to be with you.
Always a pleasure,
All right.
Megyn.
So we're not going to start with Mamdani. We're going to start with Epstein, which I just think is so interesting. And I'm noticing something equally interesting. Some Trump loyalists, some people who are are avoiding the story. And I think it's because they don't want to get into sort of civil wars within MAGA, but we don't care. We want to talk about what's happening. It's a big news story now as a large faction of the right and the MAGA base is turning on part of the Trump administration. And I wonder what you guys make of it. My own take on it this morning on our AM Update podcast, last night when I joined After Party with Emily Jashinsky, a new MK Media offering that airs live 10 p.m. YouTube.com, Mondays and Wednesdays, was that I put it mostly on Pam Bondi. And the reason I do that is because I know Cash and Dan Bongino said a lot of stuff about Epstein when they were private citizens. But ever since they got into the FBI, I have not heard them torque up the conspiracy, I don't want to say theories, but just thoughts and ideas around Epstein. Their statements as public officials have so far been consistent with the statement they made last night or on Sunday night to Axios in this statement that they released. But Pam Bondi has been putting oil on this fire since she became the head of the Department of Justice, the Attorney General. And I have to say, it's very unusual for the head of the DOJ to be speaking the way she has been. Usually the Attorney General tries not to make a lot of comments about the cases they're investigating or have under their purview. It's been weird to hear her so vocal about it, which led a lot of people to think, man, they must really be onto something. And finally, we're going to get real answers on this case. And then the Sunday night news drop comes to Axios, not exactly right-wing friendly, saying there's nothing. There'll be no more release of any documents. There's no there. He killed himself. There's no client list. There are no powerful people he was blackmailing. And you're not getting another single document. So your take on it. Let me start with you on it, Tom.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, so Pam Bondi made this statement that she said it's sitting on my desk. And, Peter Doocy asked about that at the briefing. And Caroline Leavitt tried to parse that and say, well, she was talking about the review, not the list itself. And so that explains this discrepancy that people are, she just mentioned the list.
Let me just play that, Tom. Forgive the interruption, but I'll play the soundbite,
Yeah.
then you pick it up on the back end.
Yeah.
According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network, on Fox News.
Got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars. This Attorney General and the FBI Director are committed to putting bad people behind bars where they belong. They promised an exhaustive review. That's what they did. For any further details, I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
Very rare you see Caroline Levitt on her heels or so obviously spinning. That was one instance. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing about that is if that's what she meant, that's certainly not how it was portrayed in the media when she said it months ago. So she could have clarified it at any time. Said, no, I didn't say there was a list. I just meant the review. She also said there were tens of thousands of videos. And so, that kind of... She could have, if she wanted to clarify her statement, she could have, and she didn't. And the other thing, people have been talking about, I've been following this obviously online, is that, so Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for trafficking kids to whom? Somebody, right? We know that there are people involved. And so, look, I think this is a mess for the administration, and they have been, it is one of those things that it's been a highly public interest story. People have wanted to know what's going on, and it felt like the government has been withholding information from them. We ran a piece on Real Clear Politics this morning from Mike Schellenberger, who's no right-wing nut, and saying, look, the public Congress should demand, and the Trump administration should provide transparency on this issue, because right now they've just kind of made a mess of it.
Yeah. What do you think, Carl?
Well, client list was an unfortunate phrase to be used to begin with. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein wasn't convicted of being a pimp, I guess. Or his
charged.
Girlfriend. Yeah, his girlfriend was. He was a creepy.
But just to be clear, Ghislaine Maxwell was found guilty of sex trafficking girls to Epstein, finding young girls for Epstein's sexual pleasure. Epstein. Go ahead, Carl.
But not for Bill Clinton or Alan Dershowitz or Donald Trump or these names that people floated for Jeffrey Epstein, who killed himself in prison. That's the charge. It's a scandal that the most visible defendants in federal custody kill themselves or are killed. It happened to Whitey Bulger. The prison system the Federal Bureau of Prisons should really be asked to account for itself. Why these people are killed, why these things happen. The information should be made public. But if you're not in the fever swamps of conspiracies, you think, well, here's a narcissistic guy who finally got caught in a justice system he couldn't escape. He was looking at life in prison. If he committed suicide, that's not unheard of. That
it happens.
Doesn't make sense. But the people loyal to Trump's, kept spinning these conspiracy before he even committed suicide, because they thought they could get Bill Clinton or somebody like that. Then of course, Donald Trump knew Jeffrey Epstein. From what I've read and everything, and I looked into this at the time a couple of years ago, when Trump realized what Jeffrey Epstein was about, he recoiled from that. He said, he likes him very young, and he distanced himself from Jeffrey Epstein. So there's no reason. We don't have any evidence that these famous people. I don't want to talk about the prince.
Well, we know they were on the plane. We do have evidence they were on the plane, and that many of them visited Epstein Island and visited his Manhattan mansion. But Epstein had a very, very wide web of connections. He was friends with the president of MIT. He was regularly appearing at Harvard. He was hanging out with royalty like Prince Andrew, but others as well. So it was very easy for Epstein to get people on his jet and visiting him at his island. It doesn't mean all of them were there to take advantage of barely legal type young girls.
Underage.
But the thing, look, we've had a couple of things. We've had girls who were in that mansion say there were cameras everywhere and they knew that they were being filmed, like Virginia Giuffre. She's probably the most notable. She recently died. But Virginia Giuffre lied many times about the Epstein case. I've followed it very closely, many, many, many times. So we don't know what's true. Apparently there are videotapes of Epstein, is how the DOJ is making it sound now, with these barely legal type girls. And in addition, we believe, and I'm gleaning from what they put out in that statement, child sexual assault materials that appeared to have been looked at on his computer. Like, forgive me, we used to call it kiddie porn, but child pornography that it appears he might have been looking at. And if you read deep on this case, what you find is that there was some case in which a civil plaintiff demanded documents and certain files, and it appears that the DOJ may have found that stuff on an Epstein computer at one point and had to produce it, or at least notify the other side they produced it. But there was a lockdown on any of that because you're not allowed to share those types of files for the protection of the children. But that, forgive me, it seems like a non sequitur. Like, his obsession with pornography, or what he was looking at that he got off the internet, is not really what the issue is. It's disgusting and felonious. But Andrew, the issue is whether there are powerful men who were using Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to funnel young girls or underage girls to them, that there's a list of that are now being protected by government because they're so powerful or they're so wealthy that both sides of the aisle will just bend the knee to make sure they don't get brought down. That's why people are interested in these so-called files or lists.
Yeah, no, and I think that you laid it out perfectly. And I hate when people just call this conspiracy theory, because I think this is a very legitimate news story that deserves to be looked into by the mainstream press. The vice president himself said that before the election, that this is a really important story and people should look into it.
He said they should release the list.
Exactly.
Use the word list.
So I hope people keep digging into it. There's a little wrinkle here that I'm interested in. I don't know, but there is this minute that is missing from the tape that they released of his cell, the minute before midnight. I mean, I will say, if you're a conspiracy theorist, the minute before midnight is kind of too perfect.
It's like a movie title.
Yeah, but I think it's a real question, and I think that there is at least a plausible case to be made that this is a cover-up, and as such, it should be investigated. Whether Trump is involved or not, according to Elon Musk, he is. I don't know, but I think you have to.
I don't believe that for 1 second. Biden would have released it. Biden,
right? Yeah.
And exactly. Andrew, Merrick Garland would have released that in the course of the election if maybe his name was in the book, but that doesn't mean anything. Alan Dershowitz's name was in the book because he was his lawyer. Right. That doesn't mean Alan Dershowitz was a client, and I'm well aware of the accusations against him by Virginia Giuffre, which were utter bullshit. Utter bullshit. Right.
Well,
I took a very deep dive on that.
Yeah, he proved that they were wrong. He was not in the country. He was overseas when she said he was, in this island.
And she wound up confessing, I may have been confused about him. But, you mentioned the autopsy, which is sort of, or like the death. Was it a suicide or was it a murder? It's connected to the question of client list and whether he was being blackmailed, because people believe he was killed because they think there were these powerful forces out there that had a reason to kill him. So those two do go hand in hand. And it's not just crazy right-wing conspirators, as Caitlin Collins was saying on her show last night. Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark, hired Dr. Baden, who is world-renowned for his skills as a forensic pathologist, who conducted an autopsy on Jeffrey Epstein and came out of the autopsy saying this was a murder. He has a bone that was fractured in the front of his throat that gets broken typically when you've been strangled, not, I guess, when you hang yourself. And there were other indications by Dr. Baden that led him to say this was not a suicide. This doesn't look like a suicide. So, and there were other questions too that Jeffrey Epstein's brother has been raising. So it's like, it's more than just right-wing nuts, as like some in the press would have you believe, Tom, who are saying, wait. And on top of all that, you've got the Bondi statements over and over. The one saying, she didn't say the files on my desk. She was asked specifically about the client list, and she said, it's on my desk right now. Then a week later, she promised Jesse Waters she was about to dump some sort of information dump that we were all going to be really interested in. The next day was the influencer debacle at the White House, where for some reason she invited some of the president's most loyal supporters and tried to humiliate them by giving them Epstein file marked binders, which had nothing new in them. It was all publicly released information that had already been out there. Then she acted indignant. She didn't know it was the sleazy FBI who had withheld the real documents from her. She was going to get to the bottom of it. Then she said a further release would come. One did not come. Then she was caught on tape saying there are tens of thousands of kiddie porn or child pornography material that we found, which again is like a third issue over here. And next thing we know, there's no there. And by the way, on top of all that, that same week between Feb 21 and Feb 26, when Pam Bondi made those two statements, client list is on my desk and more information is going to drop tomorrow. You had Alina Habba, who was then working for the president. She's officially counselor to the president. She had been his private attorney in that New York ridiculous case against his business. And she would go to work for Pam Bondi 3 weeks later, saying this to Piers Morgan.
But in this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
Names.
I don't see how it's not shocking that there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not been held accountable. Let's talk about the reverse. I believe in accountability. So you have to now go through your process. Now, I won't say they're guilty until they go through their time in court. But again, now it's time for accountability. We have seen for so many years, Pierce, in this country, many investigations, subpoenas, testimonies in Congress, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a general frustration with accountability. We take it halfway, we don't take it home. And I really believe that now with Cash and Pam, there will be accountability.
Okay, Tom, what's she talking about? Names? Accountability. They're going to have their day in court. I don't want to declare them guilty before they have their day. That's pretty specific.
Yeah. And to turn around and just say, oh, there's no list. Look, this is not, they want this story to end. It's not going to end. In fact, it's probably going to make it worse because it has just raised a whole new set of questions about, okay, now the Trump administration, who promised us accountability and transparency on all sorts of issues, is now doing the exact same thing that previous administrations have done. And you can already see that bubbling up online among Trump supporters who are just, disappointed at the way that they've handled this. And to your point, Megyn, I mean, up until 24 hours ago, they had given a whole host of indications and statements pointing in the direction of there being a list, there being names, there being people that were going to face consequences. And now suddenly it's just like they wave a magic wand and it's like, oh, well, there's nothing there and we're moving on. I don't think it's going to happen.
What's interesting, though, as I say, I've been listening carefully to Bongino, to Cash. Since taking office, they have not said the Bondi stuff. They are not out on that same limb since taking over at FBI. Only she is. And one of the reasons that's interesting, Carl, is because Trump sent out a tweet last night praising two of the three that we're talking about here, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Noticeably absent from the list was Pam Bondi. And he knows as well as you and I know she's under fire. Go ahead, Carl.
Well, I was going to ask you, follow this story more closely than we have. And I was going to ask you, what do you think is, you have Kash Patel, especially, and Pam Bondi, the Attorney General and the FBI Director, both appointed by Trump, both Trump loyalists, both praise Trump all the time. But they're telling different stories. Who do you think is right? Who do you think's telling the truth?
Well, look, my audience knows I am not very conspiratorial at all. Like, I disbelieve almost every one of them. I have no doubts that we did land on the moon. I'm just not one of those people at all.
9/11 actually happened.
9/11 happened. We didn't detonate a building. Like, I don't believe in any of that. None of it. No, I believe COVID started in a lab. I'm not that crazy. I'm completely taking all the government nonsense. But I'm one of those people who 9 times out of 10, I believe it's government incompetence as opposed to big government machinations against us. But in this case, I don't know what's happening. Bondi has confused me. I don't know what she's doing. However, I have not really believed that there's a massive conspiracy around Epstein because I know somebody very close to the case, and this person knows everything there is to know about the case. And this person all along has been telling me that it really was Epstein was into the barely legal types, like legal, but barely legal, that Epstein wasn't having young children, come to any of his places and wasn't actually having interactions with anyone who would be blatantly illegal. And that this person said Ghislaine Maxwell really wasn't a pimp for other, farming out young girls to other men. Now, I didn't know whether it was true or not, but I have all these years, I have yet to see something that disproves any of that. And on top of that, the DOJ brought a case. They brought a case against Epstein. They brought a case against Ghislaine Maxwell. Like if the DOJ were engaged in a massive cover-up, why would they bring these cases? Why would they open up these federal investigations against them and go into federal court or be prepared to in Epstein's case before he died? It just doesn't seem, that's not exactly how you should orchestrate or would orchestrate a cover-up. And I also, maybe I'm the only one, but I trust Bill Barr. And he took a deep dive on this and swore to me that Epstein killed himself. I believe Dan Bongino when he's on Fox saying there's nothing. We've looked at the tape. I know maybe there's a missing. I don't know how he's going to explain that, but I believe him. And I think he's told me in many settings there's nothing. There's nothing to support that he was murdered. And I believe him. So anyway, that's where I am. But I understand why other people disagree with me based on all the discussions we're having.
Can I add one thing to what you said, Megyn? Could the answer simply be that Pam Bondi is over her head? I mean, she came to office with a really good resume. Attorney General of Florida, prosecutors that they've, in the federal system who they've now said are deep state, saboteurs, told me that they had high hopes for her, that, she was more qualified than some of these other people like, Tulsi Gabbard and Bobby Kennedy Jr. for the job that she got. But she's done this. She's spoken out of school the way I've never heard an AG speak on other cases. There was this case. We're gonna throw the book at that person. We're not going to plea bargain it. We're going to give them 30 years before the indictment. And she just has behaved in ways on other cases that makes me wonder if she's the SAT question that doesn't add up here.
I mean, just look at the influencer thing, you guys. What kind of an attorney general, just take a step back, what kind of an attorney general would pretend she's giving new information to some of the president's most loyal advocates in the press, buying ink by the barrel? So either Pam Bondi knew she was about to embarrass some of his most loyal surrogates out there and did that willingly, or she didn't take the time to make sure what was in those binders. She was too lazy to actually figure out none of this is new. And yet she called a meeting with the influencers that included Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, and the sitting vice president. So she's either lazy and incompetent, or she willingly humiliated some of the president's most loyal supporters. Neither one of those is good, and that's why I'm sorry, but I'm going to predict her days are numbered as a member of the Trump administration. Am I right or wrong? What do you guys think? Andrew, you got the high eyebrows.
Well, the half-life of a Trump appointee is always difficult to predict. So I don't think I'd predict one way or the other on that. I think overall, I think he likes her. I think she's despite this latest hiccup, I think that he thinks that she represents him well, and I think she sticks around. But I don't know. Depends on.
I'm not so sure. If you look at conservative Twitter, she's right in the crosshairs. I mean, a lot of people are angry with her, and not just because of that influencer stunt, but because
I think that's
she's
true,
the one on
not,
camera.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that Trump cares that much about about Twitter or anything else anymore.
Tom Bevan does.
I think Trump thinks that he just
Shots fired.
He's declared what America First means, and he's the arbiter of all things.
I will say this, not for nothing, but I think her stock has gone way down. And you know what? Can I tell you? I think Kristi Noem's stock has gone up. Kristi Noem dialed back the over-the-top hair and makeup and photo opportunity situation that was going
we give
on.
you
She's
credit
been-
for that.
I know.
Megyn.
She was listening to your show.
Yeah, you
I
did
accept.
that.
I accept. But I think she's done a much better job. She's been totally appropriate on this Texas flooding situation. She's striking exactly the right tone. She's got like very nice empathy. You know, she's a mom, she's a grandmom. She's coming into it in a very good way. And I think a lot of those photo ops, President Trump wanted her to do. He wanted her to be doing them. It was the glam that was over the top, but she's dialed it back. I think her stock is rising, and I think Pam Bondi's is definitely on the wane. Go ahead, Tom.
I think I agree with you on that. And, you know, with regard to ICE, you know, Tom Homan's the one who's been doing, he's been everywhere. And he's been taking all comers in terms of media interviews, and he sort of became the face of ICE, and she kind of receded, I think, and started doing a little bit less. But I agree with you about Pam Bondi. I mean, the influencer thing is really interesting because, but again, that happened so long ago. I mean, if she, you know, if her stock went down after that,
it wasn't that. That's where it started, but it's been a steady drumbeat now. You know, and now the culmination of, like, I think the administration very much wants to move on from that news drop to Axios on Sunday night, but
the fact that she would,
I don't see that happening.
But to your point, what's interesting about this, so she called this big meeting. It was at the White House, this big production, this big show. And, you know, the influencers come out, and I remember I was following it online at the time. Everybody was, because we were like, oh my gosh, we're going to get all these details. And then they're like, well, okay, this is, you know, we already know this. They were sort of going through it in real time, and they were all kind of disappointed. And so it was this huge production that she orchestrated, but also the White House did. I mean, they played along with it. I mean, they hosted the meeting.
But then privately, remember, Tom, they started distancing themselves from her after that. You heard these reports in a couple of media outlets that the White House staff was like, oh my God, what is she doing? We didn't sanction this. We didn't think it was okay to bring in the vice president and others. Like, what? This is all a Pam Bondi operation.
Right. Well, somebody's got to take the fall for it. It was a debacle for sure.
If they let her go, though, if they push her out, doesn't that encourage the conspiracy theorists? Don't they just, see, she's the only one?
Well, they won't cite this. They'll cite something else. They'll wait until something else happens. You know, Trump, he's not dumb. But I don't think Trump created this. My money, if I had to put my own personal money on it, my money would be they genuinely didn't find any evidence of murder. They genuinely didn't find the so-called big list, and that Pam Bondi, in an effort to like get on TV and get people excited, got over her skis on her messaging. If I had to bet, that's what I'd bet. And for that, she should be punished, because the people who got hurt and embarrassed and lost credibility as a result of all that are the president's media supporters. Like, that's not a good group to embarrass. And that's a group to which Trump should be loyal. You know, they didn't deserve that. She did it. And the only way for her to fix it was for there to be a real drop of actual info on Epstein that she then leaked to them to make up for what she had done. And what we're seeing now as a result of the Sunday night drop to Axios is there isn't one. She doesn't have it. Many people believe she does have it. Now she's just been browbeaten into not releasing it. Either way, it's a fail on her part. So her stock's down. It would not be buying Bondi bonds today. Okay, let's keep going. Out in California, we have got ICE and Tom Homan's team trying to clean up MacArthur Park. Isn't this is your home state, Cannon? And your lovely mayor, Karen Bass, goes out there not to say, thank you, it's riddled with MS-13. Literally no children ever play here because they could get shot. It's become a place where illegal immigrants go to get false IDs and try not to get killed by MS-13. She calls up the head of CPB out there and says, get out, don't come here, we don't want you. In response to which that guy says, I don't work for you, and I'm sorry, but you're going to be very disappointed, because you better get used to me and my face. Is my team and I are going to be here until this park is rid of the scourge that is known as MS-13. And on whose side are you, Mr. Cannon?
Well, I want to clarify. I'm from San Francisco, so the mayor, Gavin Newsom, was my mayor, and we can get to him later. But Karen Bass was, she's in this spirited competition with Brandon Johnson, who can be the most ineffective mayor. It's impressive, really.
Yeah.
In its way. And
Dark horse coming up the third position in the lane, possible Zoran Mamdani. He's running.
The Big Apple. She was a member of the House for a long time and kind of generally well-liked, pleasant person, not considered a heavyweight. And when she ran for mayor, I remember being surprised. She had no executive authority. I didn't think she'd win. She did win. We've been talking this week about, National Weather Service alerts. When the alert came that Los Angeles was a combustible, she went to Africa on a junket to an inauguration. I think it was the president of Ghana. I don't know why. And when she got back, and the Palisades were burning, her response was to fire the fire chief. So, she has distinguished herself by being, feckless and ineffective. And I don't know why. It's a bit of a mystery to me. She had long experience in politics, rarely made a mistake. She was very left. But these missteps, I guess right now into a Democratic politics, if you're from a big city, Megyn, we talked about this on our show. You've got to, you got to position yourself against ICE, against the Immigration Service. You've got to favor open borders, sanctuary cities, all these things. But you're really saying that you don't want the law to be followed. And I think it seems to me a dead end for the Democrats. And I don't know why they keep, it's like keep going down that cul-de-sac.
This 2 points. When we were in New York and our kids were going to these New York City private schools, as expensive as they were and as fancy as they supposedly were, the playground right next to our all boys school was referred to by the boys as dog poop playground. It's just riddled with dog poop, people not picking up after their dogs. To me, this is like taking the side of the dog poop. This isn't like immigrants enjoy this park. It's MS-13. They literally are killing your citizens and getting people addicted to drugs, like innocent Americans. And you're on the side of the dog poop. Like somebody who came through and said, I'm going to clean up all the dog poop so the children can play and they don't have to deal with it anymore. And the mayor came out and said, the dog poop stays. Step away. This is the position she's taking. And it's not just her. You're right. Zoran Mamdani, who is likely to be our next mayor in New York City, is having this clash right now with the sitting mayor, Eric Adams, where Mamdani is saying, I will not work with ICE. I will not funnel any illegals to ICE's way, even if there's a federal detainer on them so that they can be deported. And Eric Adams is out there. Eric Adams, I'm for the corrupt one. I really hope Eric Adams wins re-election. I don't care if he's corrupt. It's like, so he took a couple gold bars from Egypt or something like that. This is the least of our problems with these candidates. And like, you got the sex pest, you got the corrupt guy, and you got the communist. You guys work with me. So Mamdani is saying no ICE, and Eric Adams was on camera saying, you know what? You got to work with these federal agencies. This is the same as saying, like, we're not going to pay our taxes. We're not going to deal with the IRS. Like, we have to. We have no choice. But this nutcase, Karen Bass, she goes out there after 45 minutes after they got there. She showed up and she called up the Border Patrol chief, the guy I mentioned, his name is Gregory Bovino, and told him they needed to leave. Here she is. This is, I think, she's at the LA raid. She is, SOT 20.
They need to leave, and they need to leave right now. They need to leave because this is unacceptable.
Who did you speak with?
Just wait and see.
Mayor Bass,
They will be leaving soon.
Mayor
She's in favor of the dog poop. And then Bill Malugin of Fox tweeted, I just spoke to Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bovino, who was the official on the phone with Karen Bass at MacArthur Park today. I asked him for his message to her as she demands raids end. Quote, I don't work for Karen Bass. Better get used to us now, because this is going to be normal very soon. We will go anywhere, anytime we want in Los Angeles. Meantime, the protesters, the activists are getting lawyers ready. They want to send lawyers to the scene. They're slashing tires of some of the federal vehicles there. They're throwing objects at the federal vehicles. They're screaming, get the F out, get the F out. And then, of course, because this is what leftists do, they dropped in the tranny to go yell at, to go yell at the ICE agents. Really, it is. It's another movie. After we're done with Missing Minute at Midnight, we've got Tranny and MacArthur Park. Here it is.
What are you going to do with that hot chick gun? What are you going to do?
For the listening audience, it was like a goth trans, I don't know. I'm not sure what that was. It was a man pretending to be a woman and not very convincingly. Andrew, you enjoyed that one. Come on.
Yeah, well, Carl said, we talked about this on our show. I think that the theory of the case for the Democrats right now on this, the only explanation that makes sense for their position, because this is what Trump ran on, this is what Trump won on, this is one of those sort of 70-30, 80-20 issues. But their theory is that the Trump administration will go too far and there will be a reaction against ICE, against Tom Homan, and that they will sort of catch that wave. That's the only sort of political explanation for it all. I'm not saying they're right, but I think that if you're looking for an explanation of how the Democrats, especially progressive Democrats, especially progressive Democratic mayors, are taking this position, which seems so out of touch with all American voters, that seems to be at least a plausible explanation. Whether they're right or not, I don't know. But that seems to be what they're betting. And if you believe that, the idea of trying to provoke an overreaction on the part of ICE is part of the strategy. So these protests are designed to make ICE overreact. And to the extent that they don't, we see pictures like that, which are like, oh, they look ridiculous. And it is ridiculous. But at some point, someplace, they're going to get that photo op of an ICE agent or someone who apparently will look like they're going too far, whether it's,
with a bullwhip
really happens or not. And they'll be, with the bullwhips.
Right, manufactured
exactly.
by Reuters.
Right, and they will have their opportunity. And I mean, I don't know what you think, Megyn, but it seems to me that at least is a sort of a political science case you could make, that's what they're doing and that's why they're doing it.
I just feel like on this issue of all issues, Tom, you guys are the polling guys, but not a day goes by where you don't see another poll, and it's across polling organizations that shows the American public wants all illegals deported. It's not, the CNN may tell you, oh no, it's just the criminals. That's not true. The polling shows a majority of the American people want all of them gone. The American people are to the right of President Trump now on this issue, because President Trump has started to say, well, the ones on the farms can stay, and maybe in the hospitality industry, which of course is an industry he knows very well. And all the polls keep saying, no, everyone, Tom. So I'm not sure this is the hill to die on for the Karen Basses and Gavin Newsoms of the world.
I agree with you, but at the same time, I think Andy makes a good point, which is, excuse me, these Democrats, they have to be all in, particularly these mayors of these big cities, against Trump, against ICE. Even this, the other story out of California this morning, which goes along with this, is that the state of California refused the Trump administration demand on transgender, basically boys and girls sports, and they said, no, we're not going to sign that. And what's interesting, you think, okay, well, where does this go? Where does this end? When you have cities and states openly defying federal law and executive orders from the federal government, what happens next? And we Pam Bondi, who we just talked about a lot, this is a way for her to sort of get her stock going back up. I mean, she will be involved, the Attorney General will be involved in bringing cases against these municipalities in these states because they're just outright defying the administration and in many cases the law.
It's a little
insurrection-y. That's exactly right.
They're doing in California the thing that Trump kept getting accused of doing, disregarding federal court orders, but actually never did.
And one more point was another story that's a part of this thread, to Andy's point, which is the story that the Democrats were advised that they need to be part of the resistance and be willing to get shot, quote unquote, get shot. I mean, they're sort of amping up this idea that they have to resist and they have to fight and they have to do it basically to the death almost, and put their lives on the line to resist the Trump administration. This is it's almost like a mental illness, the way that folks on the left see this administration, and they've just been, it's been nonstop for 10 years. This is Hitler. This is now the Gestapo. This is, authoritarianism. Democracy's over. It's been portrayed as an existential threat, and that's why they're reacting to it as if it's that.
Except the problem with like the get shot plan, in addition to you could get shot, is you'd have to do the full Trump. You'd have to get shot, and then you'd have to stand up, and you'd have to say, fight, 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 and to show total courage in the moment. You couldn't writhe around in pain, screaming, ow. And 9 times out of 10, let's face it, most of the Democrats are going to do that. They're not going to stand up and say, fight, fight. So they got to think this through. I don't think it's a very good plan. I will say this, Gavin Newsom, he's an interesting person to talk about today, as you guys know, because he's on the wrong side of these LA raids. Here he is, on the immigration raid on MacArthur Park. SOT 21, watch this.
What a disgrace, what's happening in MacArthur Park. What theater. On the 6-month anniversary, after all, of these fires. That's the message from the polluted heart of the President of the United States. The polluted heart of Stephen Miller. Those National Guard men and women that were out there protecting people are now being used as political pawns.
Protecting people, political pawns. So he is saying that, wrong side. He, notwithstanding telling Charlie Clark, what's wrong with me? Charlie Kirk, how, it's just a question of fairness, boys and girls sports. It's a question of fairness as a dad of a daughter. He understands. He's now, as you point out, telling the federal government to pound sand. He won't be in compliance with Title IX. Well, he will be, because he's going to get sued by Harmeet Dillon at the DOJ. And it will not be up to Gavin Newsom. There's this thing called the Supremacy Clause. And when federal law and state law conflict, the feds win. Sorry, you're about to learn that the hard way, Gavin. But at the same time, and you tell me, not unrelated, he's traveling, as every California governor does, or any governor really in this union, to South Carolina to tour 8 different counties and make speeches there, because that's really what he mentions, those wildfires. The California governor should be really focused on rebuilding LA. Nothing's been rebuilt. Absolutely nothing. All the red tape that he said he'd get rid of is still there. No one's rebuilding. And he's going to South Carolina, guys, because, well, why? I mean, even for a would-be presidential candidate, isn't 2025 a little early in the cycle?
Megyn, you could win a bar bet when Joe Biden pronounced George W. Bush's presidency a failure. And when he started campaigning, remember, not South Carolina, then New Hampshire, it was St. Patrick's Day of 2001. So George W. Bush had been president for like 8 weeks. So actually, Gavin has waited a decent interval compared to some. to some.
Wow. Well, yeah, because the Democrats decided that New Hampshire was too white to go first. And so they
I think it's too cold up there. I think they want to
first.
campaign in a more fun
Iowa
state.
can't count votes.
Iowa can't count votes.
And also too white. Iowa too white, New Hampshire too white. South Carolina, it had to be South Carolina or maybe Georgia, but they chose South Carolina. So he's going there. I have to tell you, I don't think Gavin Newsom is the great white hope of the Democratic Party. I really don't. I don't see it happening. Am I wrong? I realize he's got the widow's peak. That's in his favor. He's got the gravelly voice.
President of the United States,
well,
Megyn.
You think so?
Not,
oh yeah.
Well, Megyn,
that's my That's my story, and I'm stuck with it because these two guys have been beating the crap out of me for months.
You
on
think
the radio.
he does hand-to-hand combat with Rahm Emanuel and wins?
Well, you know what? We think Rahm. We actually are pretty bullish on Rahm too.
Yes, I'm bullish on Rahm.
Yeah.
Rahm's. I don't know.
Tom's Chicago, so he knows. He pays attention to
baggage.
Rahm's faults.
Yes.
How about you,
Andy
like
and I have
Bashir out of
more
Kentucky?
altitude.
He's making noise now about like he used to like. I don't think Bashir. I thought Bashir could do it because he's a blue governor in a red state, Kentucky. But the more I listen to him, the more I'm like, he can't do it. He seems pathetic and weak. I'm sorry, but like, the reason I like Rahm Emanuel as the Democratic nominee, I'm not going to vote for Rahm Emanuel, but my point is like, why I would put money on him at this point is he's strong. He's strong. Gavin Newsom's not strong. He's French Laundry. He's too pretty. He's too needy of like the good opinion of people like Charlie, who I love. But like as a Democrat, you shouldn't be looking for approval from Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk. He's a little too effete. But Rahm Emanuel, Rahm Dead Fish Emanuel, as Hannity used to call him, I think that could work for him in an era where we are starting to respect strength again.
Wait a minute. Rahm was a ballet dancer. Gavin Newsom played first base at Santa Clara. I'm gonna push back on the effete thing a little bit.
He is. I'm sorry. Why is he dining at French Laundry to begin with? That's a feat.
He has a winery up there. It makes sense.
Also a feat.
Rahm's got, he cut off his finger. So
see,
he does definitely has. Look, I just don't know, Megyn, we look at the New York Times ran a story yesterday about Democrats and immigration and how they sort of missed the moment of whether they can find their way back. And they had a giant picture of it was June 2019 debate, 10 Democrats on stage. And the question was, raise your hand if you think border crossing should be decriminalized. And 9 of the 10 raised their hand. And it was everybody except for Michael Bennet, who people forgot even ran for president, the senator from Colorado. But it was Bernie and Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden and, everybody. I just feel like the party is too far to the left in the primary. Rahm has baggage, and he's going to try and run as a centrist. Now, maybe the progressives will, there'll be 4 or 5 people, they split that vote, and he squeaks through as the only sort of centrist alternative. But I just don't know. The baggage that he has is pretty severe. He covered up the shooting of Laquan McDonald in Chicago, African-American teen who was shot 16 times by Chicago police. And folks have never forgiven him for that. And that will be brought up immediately and forever during a campaign. And so I just don't know if he's going to be able to get through. And then the other
thing, let's be honest, Rahm Emanuel is a Jewish man. And the Democratic Party has become very anti-Semitic. It just has. I mean, I think they're genuinely anti-Semitic. I really do. But they're definitely anti-Israel. That's for sure. You saw that poll that came out earlier this week with Harry Enton, like marveling at the shift in support within the Dem Party for Israel, how it used to be high double digits before, and now it's high double digits the other way toward Palestine. Plus, remember, this is why I listen to you guys all the time. And you couldn't believe that Josh Shapiro wasn't the pick for Kamala. And we all knew it was because he's Jewish. He's not even like some huge Israel guy. He's Jewish. So that's something, sadly, that Rahm is going to have to contend with. Keep going.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that, one of the other characters is, if it's not going to be Rahm, if it's not going to be Gavin, then who's it going to be? And you look at the people who are potentially running, and J.B. Pritzker decided he's going to run for re-election in governor of Illinois, but that doesn't preclude him if he wins in 2026 of running in he'll have to turn right around and run. But we've seen that happen before. He certainly thinks of himself as presidential material.
He is
and you look
too
at the other folks,
obese to be president. There, I said it.
Oh. Megyn.
I think he's on Ozempic,
yeah,
Megyn.
I mean,
is he on the shot?
Take care of that
I think he's already starting to lose weight.
I've seen no evidence of that. He's like 2 Chris Christies. He's too obese. And he's too in love with transing children. That issue cost the Democrats the White House the last time around. There was a survey of 3,000 people. The number one issue for the swing state voters was the trans issue and that ad. And he loves his whole family, the Pritzkers, they love transing the children in particular, and getting this into schools and getting into this health care. He'll just be demolished. He'll be eaten alive. I feel for you out there in Chicago. God, you've got some real leaders, some real gems out there, Tom Bevan. I can't believe you've lasted.
I got all these kids in school. I can't. It's like trying to escape the Death Star out here. I can't do it.
Here's the one upshot of it. I got to take a break. But the one upshot is, if your kids are with you and they're in a woke school, you can inoculate them, against the insanity, so that then when they go off to college or left-wing corporations, they know what they're being spun. So that's the one upside. All right, stand by. President Trump just commented on Epstein. We have that right after this. You know how much my family and I love our dogs. Yes, even Strudwick. I cannot imagine life without them. They have a great life, but some dogs are not so lucky. And that's why I'm so glad to tell you about Delta Rescue, the largest no-kill, care-for-life animal sanctuary in the world. They have rescued thousands of dogs, plus cats and horses too. They provide all the animals with shelter and safety, and most of all, love. And they've been doing it for more than 45 years now. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions, and giving can bring tax benefits too. Speak to your estate planner about how you can grow your estate while helping animals in need, and check out the estate planning tab on their website to learn more. We love our Thunder and Strudwick, but would like other dogs who need love to find it too. Visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. Something very interesting just happened at the cabinet meeting. We think it was Stephen Nelson of the New York Post, but apologies if we have that wrong, who brought up the Epstein release, seemed to be directing it toward Pam Bondi. You will hear Trump interrupt her to try to entirely change and set the narrative. And then she comes back up. Wow, listen to the following.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the set?
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Pam, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
Good grief. That was no bueno, guys. That was no bueno. Okay. President Trump had the same problem there that Caroline Leavitt had yesterday. The dodge should not be obvious. It should be subtle. It should be deftly worked into a more substantive answer. It shouldn't be, hold on, I want to answer that before you answer that, my underling. Why are you interested in Jeffrey Epstein? That old story? That is not a thing. We should not talk about that, creep. That is unbelievable that you want to waste the time. Do you want to answer that? And then she doesn't take the cue. Yeah, I'm fine answering it. Trump's like, hello, I just told you the answer. And then, what is she saying? I meant the file. The question was unambiguous. List, client list. John Roberts couldn't have asked it any more acutely. Client list. She didn't say the files. She said it in response is sitting on my desk. Okay, but now she says, I meant the file. Then what we found was tens of thousands of pictures of child pornography. As I said, that my deduction was correct. And then she says, by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. She does this in all of her interviews. She takes a little pivot. She goes down a little tributary to try to waste time talking about how he's so disgusting. There was one from February 26th, where I think we have it, SOT 12, where she talks about how we have 200 cases, victims, maybe 250. Let's just play it, because I want to show you. She keeps doing this. She's using filler so that she doesn't have to stay on substance. Trust me, as a lawyer, I've seen it a million times. Here it is in SOT 12. I think it's in here. I haven't seen the final cut of this SOT.
You said last week that you have the Epstein files on your desk. When can we see them, and what's taking so long to release them?
I do. Jesse, there are well over, this will make you sick, 200 victims. 200. So we have, well over 250 actually. So we have to make sure that their identity is protected and their personal information. But other than that, I think tomorrow, the personal information of victims. Other than that, I think tomorrow, Jesse, breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released by my office.
What kind? Are we going to see who was on the flights? Are we going to see any evidence from what he recorded? Because he had all of his homes wired with recording devices.
Yeah. What you're going to see, hopefully tomorrow, is a lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information. But it's pretty sick what that man did.
Okay. Well,
along with his co-defendant.
Absolutely. And he had help. That's for sure.
He sure did.
Okay. That was the night before the influencer event. She was not saying we have no names. She was already saying we have videos. So when she's saying more information is coming, which she then doubled down on in March, she'd already revealed that there were these, pornography things that weren't going to be released. They're not going to release anything involving the actual victims' names, which of course we all know. Everybody knows that. She's teasing something else. And she does these side tributaries of, he's disgusting. It's so gross. What a pervert. That's filler. There's a reason she's doing that. I'm telling you, what it's telling us is she's nervous. And the truth is not her friend for whatever reason. I don't know. I wish I did. But what that tells me is the truth is not her friend. That's why she's using filler, even to the moment where this New York Post in the cabinet meeting reporter asked her. And she's going on about how, once again, tens of thousands, that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. And then, and it's not ever going to be released, as if anybody who's criticizing them is like, let me see the child pornography. Literally, nobody's saying that. This is a straw man, right? They're trying to be like, inappropriate. No one's asking to see that stuff. We know we can't. We don't want to see any of that. But she's acting like that's the issue when it's not, which is another tell. I have no information on him being an agent. What? That's been out there since we knew the name Jeffrey Epstein. I'll look into it. Now you're going to look into it? And then the Minute Before Midnight guys, our film came up. The Minute Before Midnight is actually a thing. She confessed to it and then actually said some nonsense about how the video's not conclusive. What? I don't think that's the FBI's stance. I think the FBI, based on watching Dan Bongino on Fox and Friends a couple weeks ago, thinks it is conclusive. She says the video's not conclusive, but evidence prior to it was. Huh? What evidence? No one knows what the hell you're talking about. And then she talks about how every night the Bureau of Prisons redoes the videotape so they lose the Minute Before Midnight every night, which if that's verified by looking at other tapes will only cause more questions because everybody's going to say, oh, so they knew they had 1 minute at midnight to get in and get out. And it could be explained by the fact that none of that clarified anything. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it certainly makes that minute all the more interesting because, as you say, I mean, that didn't help at all. And I think I understood exactly what she was saying, which is that this is standard operating procedure, that there's a minute before midnight that isn't taped every night. And what we're going to do is show you that that is consistent over other nights, as if that sort of explains it. So the accusation isn't that, oh, someone eliminated a minute before midnight. It's almost worse. It's like, oh, they know that there's 1 minute that isn't taped every night. And so, I mean, this is catnip for conspiracy, right? I mean,
now we know the people who worked in the prison would know about this weird thing that you're not taping for a minute. So they would know that. They were the only people who would know that. Can you kill a guy in a minute? I guess we'll find out. They'll have the Trump administration will be all over the map on that too. But this is this is a mess, Megyn. You're right. I'm even less of a conspiracy theorist than you are. I just assume that sophisticated conspiracies by evil actors and hundreds of people in on it. No, incompetent people who then cover their ass. Yes, but why would she just say that? Why would she say that minute is not taped every night? What is that?
She should have taken Trump's lead, followed his lead. Do you even want to answer that? The proper answer, according to the president, would have been, no, let's move on. But she had to, because she's getting beaten up in the press, Tom. And there's no question she just made it worse.
She did. But to me, the most interesting thing was Trump. I mean,
yes.
Of course. Everybody's been talking about Epstein. It's never gone away. Elon Musk just mentioned his name connected with Epstein. Like, it was a big deal like a week ago. They announced on Sunday night, there's no case. Of course we're going to be talking about it. He's like, oh, this is a desecration. I'm like, what? Since when? Since when?
It was so obvious.
Trump
didn't even sound persuasive, Tom. When Trump's genuinely annoyed that something comes up, old Big Daddy's not afraid of being like, F off, you nasty reporter. This was him like, I am indignant that you would bring up Jeffrey Epstein when there are more important subjects.
So weird. Yeah. No, that was weird.
He just didn't want her to talk about it, Megyn. He just was trying to get her to be quiet. He just didn't want her to answer the question.
Yes, yeah, so she was too thick to take the lead.
I know.
But you would know that that's going to be question number one at this press conference. That's why we talked about it at the top of your show. I mean, it's a very big, important story.
Well, it was not a press conference. It was a cabinet meeting. I mean, you
better be careful, Megyn. He's going to make you Attorney General.
Oh, God. He doesn't want me. I'm starting to really miss Matt Gaetz, I have to say. Why did we lose him so quickly? Why did we roll over on that so fast? I am rooting for the president. I am a supporter of the president, but this is not going well. And they need a shift in strategy. And I really think what needs to happen is I volunteer to do it because I am not conspiratorial, but I totally understand the Epstein case very well and why people have questions about it. I'll sit down with all three of them. Give me Bondi, Patel, and Bongino for 2 hours. Nothing, no holds barred. I can ask anything. And then the audience can see whether they're truth tellers. Honestly, like this.
Seriously, Megyn, you could charge pay-per-view for that. You'd make a fortune.
Yeah, that's right.
And I care about them. I don't know Pam as well, but though I know Pam, I don't dislike Pam. I really don't. We go back years at Fox News. Dan is the only one who I consider an actual personal friend. But the audience knows that, and I hope is coloring, that in on assessing my own bias on this. But this is why you have to sort of keep some distance between yourself and the administration, even when they're your friends. You have to be able to report honestly on them and to call out bullshit when you think you smell it. And I think I smell it, and I'm nowhere near dog poop playground. So I think it's coming from Washington, D.C. Okay, let's keep going. What a day. This is so crazy. I can't quite believe this. Okay, let's move on to Mamdani, okay? This guy, everything's coming out about him now. And it does seem that in addition to being a genuinely terrible person, Andrew Cuomo had the absolute worst research team in politics. Why are we learning about all this stuff, guys, now, after the guy already won the nomination? Andrew?
Well, we talked about this on our show. Andrew Cuomo ran one of the quintessentially worst campaigns you could possibly run. It was bad on every level, including, as you point out, the Oppo research on who would end up, winning the nomination in this weird, five-way race that they ran up there, where you count the votes, proportionally and all that sort of stuff. So, I think what's interesting about Mamdani is that he is a old school socialist, and he's sort of bringing that idea of socialism back from this sort of cultural socialism that we've seen in recent years, that were sort of all based around sort of interest groups and identity politics, back to sort of, the roots of socialism, which are, and he's talked about controlling the means of production, which is a phrase that, Yeah, I
Straight
heard
out of Karl
that
Marx.
in America since the 60s, right? I mean, that's old school. That's what Bernie Sanders talked about before he sort of, became a cultural Marxist himself.
And he tweeted from each according to his ability to those according to their means. That's the Karl Marx quote. I don't have it quite right.
According to their needs, yes. So yeah, I mean, this, and to me, and this goes back to our previous discussion about who's going to end up with the Democratic nomination, all the energy in the Democratic Party, I think, is on the left. I think this sort of feint to the sort of right or the center is over. I think they're going full in on democratic socialism, small d, in parens, in quotes, democratic socialism. And Mamdani is the sort of vector of this for the moment. He's very popular among young people. People do not remember what socialism really is. They have no conception of, how it's failed every time it's been tried. But for some reason it's back, and he's the guy. And, like I say, I think what's interesting about him is this idea that he is going back to the roots of socialism and getting away from this sort of identity politics part of it, and it's really class-based.
Well, he does both. He does both, Andy. He's the whole package. He does all of the virtue signaling and all the Islamic stuff and the old-fashioned Marxist-Leninism. I mean, it's weird. And Andrew Cuomo, how much of this did he mention in the campaign, Megyn? You live up there. Not much, huh?
None. No, because you know what, Carl, what I realized too late, I mean, I wasn't paying that close attention, but I think Andrew Cuomo was really hamstrung by his many scandals. He's a shadow of his former self. He's scared. He wasn't bold. He didn't take big risks. He didn't swing big. He just thought he'd skulk along as a Cuomo. He's nothing like his father. He keeps thinking we're going to think he's Mario Cuomo, who was legitimately very popular in New York, where I lived my whole life. And it didn't work. People knew he's a weird, perverted guy who tried to blame his weird sex pest stuff on being an Italian. What the F? And killed a bunch of senior citizens in New York State with his order, which he was told was going to kill them, that COVID-positive patients had to be allowed back into the nursing homes and weren't allowed to be tested for it. And wrote his memoir on the taxpayer's dime. He got $5 million for it using staffers I was paying for as a New York State taxpayer. Overreached mightily on COVID. We had a dinner party at our house during COVID. I was living in Manhattan, where I got those little signs of Andrew Cuomo's head, looking up, and I put him in all the windows because he was literally staring you down. He was chastising you. People hate Andrew Cuomo, and I think he was afraid. He just thought he could skulk in with the Cuomo name. And he took no big swings, and only now are we learning the stuff.
Well, we've been talking on our show. Is there any chance Eric Adams benefits from this, and that New Yorkers wake up and say, okay, I don't really want a hardcore Marxist who wasn't born in this country but hates this country, even though this country's been so good to him and his family. This guy's too much for me. Maybe Eric Adams is not as bad as I thought he was. Maybe I can live another 4 years with Eric Adams. What's the vibe up there? The polls don't show it yet, but what do you sense?
I mean, I think he's going to win. I think Mamdani's going to win. There's no one, not Eric Adams, not Cuomo, not Curtis Lewa. You can't get anybody else on the ballot who's got his energy and his weird, snake oil salesman vibe of whatever you want, you can have it. I'll get it for you. I'm going to lower all the rents. I'm going to ruin all the billionaires, but I'm also going to tax the billionaires into oblivion to pay for all my wonderful things like free buses. And we're going to become socialist, and we are going to take from the people with means and give to people according to their needs. It's going to be our new utopia. We're going to have public housing right in the middle of Central Park. And that's definitely not going to affect quality of life at all for the millionaires and others who live on the park and enjoy it. Don't worry. We're not going to cooperate with ICE. So we're going to increase the magnet effect that this city has on illegals who want to come here. We're going to put them up in the hotels again on those billionaires' dollars who are going to leave New York because they won't be taxed this way. He's a snake oil salesman, but he's got all the charm of one too. Mm-hmm. And I think New Yorkers who aren't paying that much attention, and young people who aren't doing that well, and they don't, it's never easy for young people in big cities. Ask any young person. in Chicago, in New York, in Boston, in San Fran, in LA. They're exorbitantly expensive. We all went through it. This is not the first generation to experience that. You know what we did? We got roommates. We lived cheaply, or we lived right on the outer part of the city. We didn't run around complaining that the country needs to be socialist or communist and start voting in left-wing loons like this guy. But I think he's going to win. And here's one other thing for you. David Patterson, the former governor of New York, puts out this long paper statement like, what we really need is for the party to come together now, he's Democrat, and like select the right leader before the vote. And I have to hand it to Crystal Ball, who I love, but I don't agree with her politics, and she doesn't agree with mine, which is fine. I still like her. And she tweeted out, this is bonkers. This guy says New York City Democrats need to come together and decide to support whichever candidate has the most support among them. That's a quote. They did this. It was called the Democratic primary. And this guy, Zoran Mamdani, won it, and it wasn't even particularly close. Their goose is cooked, Tom Bevan.
I think I agree with you. And, you know, what's interesting is watching. So the story that came over the weekend that Mamdani had checked the box African-American on his application to Columbia.
The race box. Be sure you say that, because it wasn't what's your national origin. It was what is your race. Go ahead and explain it, because we haven't talked about it with our audience yet.
Yeah, well, no. But the leak went to the New York Times. So that just tells you there are forces inside the Democratic Party, the establishment. There's folks on Wall Street. They're all freaking out right now because they've basically sort of enabled this monster, and now they can't stop him. I think he's going to win because I don't think there's going to be enough support. But they are going to try and take him down. And as you said, like the Oppo stuff that Cuomo should have been able to find is all coming out, and it's going to be a steady drumbeat of that all the way through the election. But I don't know that it's going to be enough to slow him down. He is a charismatic guy. He's giving away free goodies to everybody. Says he's going to, it's the rich's fault for the plight of young people and folks in the city that can't afford it. And so it's the sort of standard playbook, and it's not just socialism, it's communism. I mean, seizing the means of production.
Communism.
It is true communism.
It's seizing the means of production. He said he wants to do that.
I know. So, I mean, he's literally a textbook communist. He says he's a socialist. He's actually a communist. And, Sean McGuire, who's a venture capitalist out of, in Silicon Valley, I don't know if you heard about this. So he tweeted out over the weekend. He actually said, look, I believe he's an Islamist. And of course, he caught all sorts of hell for that. A bunch of people have signed a letter trying to get him fired. He went online and published a 28-minute video trying to explain in rational terms why he thinks that Mamdani is not just a socialist, he's a communist, but also an Islamist. And there was a story in the New York Post the other day, an editorial, talking about it's not just him, it's the people that he's going to bring in to run the city. Jamal Bowman, remember him? Mr. Fire Escape,
yes.
Fire alarm.
That loon
might actually be the head of schools, and this councilwoman from Queens who's like anti-police might actually be in charge of the security and the police department. I mean, it's going to be a collection of really left-wing radicals who are going to be implementing his policies all across that city, and that's why a lot of people are worried. Even some Democrats are worried that if he gets elected, he's going to destroy the city.
Thank God we left. Thank God. Lord, thank you. We left after our, the schools went totally crazy and it became too much for us. But on the heels, like as we were looking, where can we move where we can still be in the Northeast and like with all of our people, they announced that they were defunding the cops by $1 billion. And I really thought it was a sign from God. It was God just saying, just in case you were worried you weren't making the right decision. This guy tries to claim now he's not for defunding the police. It's all, he tweeted it, defund the police. And when somebody said, when we say defund the police, we don't really mean defund the police. We mean reallocate money to like more social services who can intervene earlier. And he responded, no, we mean defund the police. Like, okay. The race thing is too delicious to not spend another minute on. I love this story so much. So somebody hacked the Columbia University applications department, computer files, and they discovered his application back when he was a high school senior in 2009. He was born in Uganda. He's Indian, all right? In the same way Elon Musk was born in Africa, but is white, Zoran Mamdani was born in Africa, but is Indian. Okay? That's what's real. If a white person is born in Africa, it does not make them African American or black when it comes to race. You want it at national origin? Sure, you could say Africa, like Elon can, like Charlize Theron can say. You cannot say your race is black or African American. Everyone knows what that means. We're talking about skin color and a certain background that might entitle you to an extra feather in your cap on the application process, because before the Supreme Court ruling, there you used to be allowed to account for that in a way that would give somebody a leg up. He checked the box when asked to identify his race, and he checked the box that read black or African American, and also checked the box that read Asian, which just shows he is el stupido, because only one of those boxes gets you into college. The other one gets you not into college. They don't like Asians. This is the racism of the left. They like brown, but not if you're not brown enough. Asian, not like Indian. No, it's a no. That won't really help you. God forbid Asian. That's a no altogether. So he didn't have it quite figured out. And his dad was a professor there. And then he also told them that, thinking it would help them. But obviously that also telegraphed that he was the son of a college professor, and that they lived in a nice little Tony area, and his mother was well educated as well. And it was very clear. But he comes out to say this. In an interview with the Times, he said he did not consider himself black or African American, but rather an American who was born in Africa. By the way, he wasn't an American even when he checked that. His answers on the college application were, quote, an attempt to represent his complex background, given the limited choices before him, not to gain an upper hand in the admission process. A lie! A lie! This is what I have to say to that.
Sure, Jan.
100% he was checking it to get in, and he still didn't get in.
And he didn't get in, and his dad's a professor there. I mean, ugh.
Yes. And now you've got all these leftists who, if Megyn Kelly ever checked the box, even if I were born in Uganda, of being black or African American, would have my head on a platter. They're running. He's no more black than I am just because he's Asian. Are running to defend him and attack the New York Times as having done something wrong, Tom. They're mad at the Times.
Yes. And saying basically, well, I think it was Nicole Hannah-Jones, the author of the 1619 Project, tweeted something that said, well, we know who's culturally black and who isn't, and there's a difference. And we
Clarence Thomas, you're out. You're out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, look, this is going to be fascinating to watch this whole thing play out, because there will be other instances and more coming down the line where you'll have, I think, folks that will be, going out of their way, bending over backwards to defend this guy when, he's a very privileged guy. I mean, as you mentioned, dad's a professor, mom's like a famous, movie producer?
Director or producer, yeah.
Movie director, yeah. Grew up in a very Tony neighborhood. I mean, this guy is, he's about as privileged as you could possibly be. And he is very charismatic, but he's selling this sort of bill of goods to the people of New York that he's for the, the downtrodden, and he's going to make this, create this socialist utopia. It's going to be amazing to watch.
It's like the number of people coming out to defend him. Like, okay, here's Mehdi Hassan. He writes, everyone should be making noise about this huge media scandal in the New York Times. While Trump makes money off of frivolous lawsuits against CBS, ABC, etc., the Times is getting away with an anti-Mamdani hit job fed to them by a far-right race science guy who they kept anonymous. Who cares, Andrew, where they got the story? No one, including Mamdani, is claiming it's untrue.
Yeah, no, there's been no pushback on the actual facts of the case. But first of all, the vanguard of the proletariat comes from the elite. I mean, we know that from Lenin. We know that. So he's in a very solid tradition of the leftists. It's never truly a man of the people that comes up and runs the revolution, because the proletariat are not capable of doing that. So that's why you need people like Mamdani who understand the theory and everything and can actually make it happen. So in that regard, he fits into he's a textbook leftist in that regard. But the other thing that I think is interesting about this right now is what it says about how New York might have changed, because there's 2 million Jews in New York City. There are 800,000 Muslims now, which sort of shocked me. That's a bigger number than I would have expected.
That's a big old number.
Yeah, so the city is really changed, and he does, in terms of sort of, if you think of the ethnic makeup of New York and how, ethnics rise in politics, he fits that model in a way that's interesting. And to your point originally, Megyn, I think he has a pretty good chance of pulling this off, even with all the little stuff that's going to come out about his background and stuff.
By the way, his wife
he
also
may be
lies.
The man for the moment. I'm sorry?
I think sadly he is, but his wife also lies. Her name is Rama Duwaji, and she says on her Instagram bio that she is, quote, from Damascus. She's from Texas.
Well, the
is there
weather's
a
similar.
Damascus, Texas? I don't think so. Both of these two are like,
that's a great name. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just cosplayers.
What I don't understand about this fixation, not just with this guy, but all these young Gen Zers who think they like socialism. It's not like socialism disappeared off the face of the earth. Venezuela tried it, and it wrecked their economy. And it wrecked their economy so much that the Biden administration gave 500,000 visas to Venezuelans to come to the United States because their economy was wrecked by socialism. And there's this disconnect between the facts of the real world and this rhetoric. I guess, I don't know who you blame, the press, the public school system, maybe Gen Z, I don't know, Instagram. I don't know who you blame for this, but
you know what, Carl?
But this should be right there. It's right there in front of us, right?
It's no surprise because you guys know. So you're from San Francisco and Tom's from Chicago. Where are you from, Andy?
Well, originally I'm from outside New York City.
Okay, and you're from New York, and I've spent the last 17 years in New York. It's these blue cities that are being run into the ground. We're now, instead of recognizing it's democratic rule that has ruined these crown jewels of America, they're like, we got to try communism. And on top of that, they're like, you need communism to fight fascism. There's fascism now in the White House, only that's not real. But the communism it is real. Like, this guy is an actual communist. It's worse than socialism. You're right. And there's no pause to realize how your city and your life got this way. It is bad. They're not wrong. There is an affordability crisis for sure. Part of it is just you're young and you chose a very expensive place to live. But a lot of these cities have been run into the ground, like Chicago. I mean, there's no better example of it. I mean, San Francisco's coming back now because they hit rock bottom, I think. And now they're starting to realize you have to moderate or the city's going to just flush down the toilet into the ocean. And Chicago, I mean, what does Brandon Johnson have, an 11% approval rating, Tom? Even the left-wing Chicagoans are realizing he's a disaster.
I think it might be lower than that, actually.
Wow.
It's in 7%.
I mean, at least in New York, you guys have had Republican mayors. I mean, you had Giuliani, you had Bloomberg, who was, Republican, then an independent. Chicago hasn't had a Republican mayor in 100 years. And Republicans have no control over any of the levers of government, not just at the municipal level, but at the state level as well. And we had Lori Light. I mean, if you had told me, Megyn, 4 years ago that Chicagoans would be pining for the days of Lori Lightfoot, which they are now, I would have said you're crazy. But so there is no moderation. There's just this constant march to the left. And there are no alternatives. I mean, even the sane Democrat who ran this last time around, Paul Vallas, could not overcome the teachers' unions, could not overcome the sort of system that was put in place. And now you have a situation where you've got a mayor, as I said, with like 6% approval rating or something. And but he might win re-election. It is completely possible that he could be reelected just because of, he's got the unions, the teachers union in particular, behind him. I mean, that's part of the problem in these big cities is the unionization just being completely lopsided and one-sided. And that's certainly the case in Chicago.
By the way, Tom, I was just looking for my papers. I can't find it. It was in my yesterday's packet, I think. But how many people were killed in Chicago this past weekend? I mean, how many people were shot and killed? And the same, no one reports on it. It's fine. The same crowd that wants us to believe, like, we have to defund the police because they're anti-black. That's where the whole thing came from. It was black people, mostly on the south side of Chicago, who were, how many? I don't have it in front of me. How many were killed and how many were shot? It was like 80 shot. And
it was a bunch. And look, I've been
55 shot, 55 shot, but it goes up to 80 if you include Thursday, like the day before.
Right.
And multiple dead. No one cares. They don't care. They don't care when black people die at the hands of other black people or Hispanics at the hands of other Hispanics. The left care when they can use it to indict white people, cops, or guns. You don't hear a peep about gun violence from any of this crowd in the wake of what happened in Chicago, right? You don't hear any calls to have Brandon Johnson recalled.
No, and Chicago has some of the strictest gun laws in the country, and this has been going on for years. This was going on when Barack Obama was president. And I've been, I get up and I read the Chicago papers every day, and it's just this constant drumbeat. And you're right. I mean, it's confined to like a few neighborhoods, a couple on the south side, a couple on the west side, who bear the brunt of all of this terrible violence and all the gang stuff that's going on. And then you've got Brandon Johnson. So he just vetoed. They tried to put an ordinance in place to prevent all of these kids from gathering. It was a curfew for teens, and he vetoed it. I mean, it makes no sense. And those are the kinds of policies that you have that allow this stuff to just, fester and continue. And nobody ever puts a stop to it.
Here it is. I found my information. So if you just go from midnight on Thursday to July 6th, Sunday, at least 50 shot, 6 killed. If you add in Wednesday night, 68 shot, 10 killed. It's barely being covered by the so-called legacy media. They don't care. They actually don't think Black Lives Matter at all. They just love an opportunity to indict whitey, especially if it happens to be a cop. And if the cop's black, that's fine too. They'll indict him. They're fine throwing black cops under. They hate cops of any color. But it's so obvious, or they'd be reporting on this, or they would care. But all of this, looking the other way when it's black on black violence or Hispanic on Hispanic violence, that just shows, like, that's one of the problems in all these major cities. They don't care. And it really is that communist mindset of like, what we care about is seizing the means of production. We care about the economics, getting rid of private industry, which of course is, capitalism has so few defenders. Where are the in-depth think pieces other than realclearpolitics.com defending capitalism against these nutcases? What's happened in the mayoral race, according to the latest reports, is Cuomo called Adams to ask him to drop out. Cuomo, who lost to Zoran already by double digits, wants Adams to drop out. And Adams is like, you drop out. I'm the sitting mayor. I'm literally the sitting mayor. And I didn't just lose to him. You drop out. No one's dropping out. And Bill Ackman is on Twitter right now drafting a 430 paragraph text saying what his big plan is. I can tell you it's not going to work unless everybody drops out except for one. Zoran Mamdani is going to be the next mayor of New York. And it's a real
maybe Anthony
shame.
Weiner can make a comeback.
He would have my vote. Literally, I'd rather have the guy, the pervert, who's sending up dick pics with a young child at his side.
He's gonna send you a picture now, Megyn.
Oh God!
He may sign it too.
If this is the price I have to pay, I would vote for Anthony Weiner. I'd vote for him over this Mamdani. I would. People are going to die in New York. They if he defunds the police, because I believe he genuinely does want to do that, even though he knew he had to say otherwise to actually get the nomination, or messes with the cops the way he says he's going to, poor people of color are going to die in much greater numbers. That will be the direct result of his policy. Anyway, okay, we got to take a quick break because you guys know, got to pay some bills, but with wonderful advertisers. And we'll be right back with the RCP guys after this. The American dream has changed. Forget the white picket fence. For most Americans, the real dream is getting out of debt. If you are feeling the pressure from rising prices, mounting credit card debt, and you're just trying to stay afloat, I want you to know there could be a way out with Done with Debt. They've got one goal: break you free from debt permanently. They're not pushing loans or bankruptcy. Instead, their tough negotiators go straight to your creditors, slashing what you owe, wiping out interest, and eliminating penalties. And the best part, most clients see more money in their pocket in the first month. You've worked too hard to let debt steal your future. With Done with Debt, your dream of being debt-free could be possible. Visit donewithdebt.com and speak with one of their experts. It's completely free. But some of their solutions are time sensitive, so don't wait. Go to donewithdebt.com, donewithdebt.com. Remember when you were a kid with an iron stomach? Pizza, ice cream, chips, PB, nothing fazed you. But these days, if you are like most people, you feel like your stomach can be a bear trap, one wrong bite and you're done. Here's the thing. Years ago, our ancestors ate lots and lots of bitter plants daily that made their digestion work. Nice and easy. But our modern diet has completely eliminated these essential compounds. You've heard me talk about Just Thrive probiotic before. Took one this morning. Love Just Thrive probiotics. And now they have their newest product, Digestive Bitters. These tasteless capsules contain 12 bitter herbs, so you don't have to taste the bitter. You just get the benefits. That they say helps wake up your digestive system for results you can feel. No more bloat, burping, belly aching after meals. Well, you might belly ache, like verbally, but you won't actually have one in your belly. Just comfortable digestion, like when you were younger. Just Thrive Digestive Bitters helps your cravings and helps keep you satisfied longer. Give your gut the care it deserves. Try a Just Thrive probiotic and digestive bitters today, risk-free, and save 20% with code Megyn at justthrivehealth.com. See the difference for yourself or get a full product refund, no questions asked. Justthrivehealth.com, code Megyn, because your health is your greatest asset. Speaking of Mamdani, he and the Vice President of the United States in an exchange that's fiery. Mamdani on July 4th posted the following: America is beautiful, contradictory, unfinished. I am proud of our country, even as we constantly strive to make it better, to protect and deepen our democracy, to fulfill its promise for each and every person who calls it home. Happy Independence Day. No kings in America. Okay. So J.D. Vance weighs in, and this is on camera at a dinner at the Claremont Institute on Saturday. Watch.
There is no gratitude in those words. No sense of owing something to this land and the people who turned its wilderness into the most powerful nation on earth. Zoran Mamdani's father fled Uganda when the tyrant Idi Amin decided to ethnically cleanse his nation's Indian population. Mamdani's family fled violent racial hatred, only for him to come to this country, a country built by people he never knew, overflowing with generosity to his family, offering a haven from the kind of violent ethnic conflict that is commonplace in world history, but it is not commonplace here. And he dares, on our 249th anniversary, to congratulate it by paying homage to its incompleteness and to its, as he calls it, contradiction. I wonder, has he ever read the letters from boy soldiers in the Union Army to parents and sweethearts that they'd never see again? Has he ever visited the gravesite of a loved one who gave their life to build the kind of society where his family could escape racial theft and racial violence? Has he ever looked in the mirror and recognized that he might not be alive were it not for the generosity of a country he dares to insult on its most sacred day? Who the hell does he think that he is?
Wow. Go JD. I loved that. I think he's tapping into a sentiment everybody in the Republican Party feels, which is patriotism, not so much on the left, according to the polling. But what did you make of the exchange, guys? Carl?
Well, this is a problem in the Democratic Party now, is the immigrants who've come here, and they've come for generations. And I'm talking about, fleeing social unrest, from Greece in the 1950s, from everywhere, from Cambodia, from Vietnam. And then you have, this generation of people, Ilhan Omar, Mamdani, they've come here, and instead of gratitude, they have this resentment. I do not understand it. I don't know where it comes from. It seems to me, gratitude we expect the French to be grateful, for World War II. Gratitude is not, I think it was Stephen Ambrose who pointed out, a permanent condition. You don't expect people to be, for generations to be grateful. But this guy is first generation. He came here as a kid. This country's given him everything. And this halting, say the bare minimum that you can come up with about America, you can't say anything without saying, and we have faults, unfinished, original sin, racism. I just don't get it. They've come here and they've thrived. And I just think that maybe Megyn, maybe Tom and Andy and I, we sort of scratch our heads about it. It's a new feature. It's the least attractive trait, and I don't frankly understand it.
It's so funny. She mentioned Ilhan Omar, who I don't know if she didn't see the polls or what, but she never misses an opportunity to bash America. And she ran around on 4th of July covered like a head to toe flag outfit. She put out this patriotic message like, I love my country. It was like, do you? Okay. Well, I mean, look, I'll take it if I can get it. She's hugging somebody dressed as the Statue of Liberty. Forgive me if I'm a little skeptical in her case. But I will say, I appreciate the messaging from J.D. Vance. I think it's fair to say our last vice president did not have it in her to offer a stirring defense of the United States of America. All right. The only thing she could defend was the Venn diagram that she loved so much that she could talk about. But we did our 4th of July celebration as we do every year, and we go all out. One year I had the National Review guys come. You guys should come one year. We should have the RCP guys come. But you have to dress up in a costume, okay? We had some special guest stars, some of whom you might know. Joe Concha was there of Fox News. Ed Gillespie, you know him, ran for governor of Virginia, almost won, former Bush guy. We used to run the RNC. And we had a bunch of friends come. So we all dressed up. I'll show you the pictures. The people who speak in our little play/declaration reading all get dressed. Are we going to show them? I get the costumes and I provide them to everybody. Some I own, some I rent from my friend at this great costume place. And he always says to Abby when she gets the costumes, behind every strong woman is a great gay man. And I love him. So he provides us with all the costumes and so on, most of the costumes. Dave Gorab of SiriusXM, there in the middle, who was super fun to see him too. Anyway, we all get together and we read the Declaration. And we go back over what led to the Declaration, how bad the king was and how people had it. My friend Dave Hastings plays the king in this ridiculous red outfit. And then we read the Declaration. We read the terrible things the king was doing. We talk about Thomas Paine and common sense and how revolution was in the air. And all of our kids are growing up hearing about this and hearing about what was going on. I'm just pulling up the Declaration here, and I'll just read you part of it. When they're really getting going, the founders in this document written by Thomas Jefferson. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them, meaning people, reduce people, under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. And we go on. That's what the day is about, reminding us why we formed this more perfect union, what those unalienable rights were that our founders recognized and put into writing and crafted the entire government behind. Not, we're unfinished, we're imperfect, I'm proud of it, but no kings. This guy doesn't get it.
Look,
are you coming to my party?
System. Greatest. Yes, we'll take that as an invitation. Yeah. We absolutely accept. We'll be there next year.
Tom speaks for all of us.
Carl will do the entire reading by himself.
Carl was there.
You can do it from memory, probably.
Yes.
So, I
we'll
agree.
do it for the big 250.
The greatest system of government ever devised. Greatest country ever.
We don't need some moron from Uganda changing it to a communist system. He does not have the answers. Guys, a pleasure as always. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Megyn.
All right, tomorrow we have next up host Mark Halperin.